Hi guys, Lock Gannon, NXT, coming at you with some very cool mood lighting for this video. It's been a while, once again, but for this video I was just asked to pick a couple of topics, or just pick from a couple of topics that I get asked about every so often. And once again, I can't really go into advanced detail on this, so I'll just tackle it from the kind of the more basic perspective. And we're going to talk about, I suppose, programming, or training splits, or frequency of training, a few bits and pieces like that. Because there's like everything else, there's a lot of not confusion, but just people find it hard to, I suppose, to set a plan in place, particularly if they're going off their own volition. From the most basic starting point, the best thing you can generally do is look towards a total body split, 2 to 3 times a week. That straight out will give you the best returns. It'll give you some of the best. We won't say the best. I'm not going to go there, but you'll never go wrong with picking the full body split and getting that higher frequency where each body part that you train will get taxed 3 times a week. The volume certainly won't be overly high per body part. It doesn't need to be, but the general volume of the session will be nice and high. And then over the space of 2 to 3 workouts, you're going to get the benefit of both worlds. It's really what happens after that there's a lot of potential directions that you can go. It can be potentially breaking down the body into upper and lower workouts. It can be kind of anterior, posterior, and those can be kind of, I suppose, workouts done over day 1 and day 2, and of course they can be repeated. If you have a 3-day split, it becomes upper, lower, upper, and the next week it'll become lower, upper, lower. Or of course, if it's a 4-day split, you get upper, lower, or front, back, front, back. It really depends on the frequency of training at that point. What the big question straight off the bat would be, how many days? That's completely dependent. So don't feel you have to be doing 4 days when 3 makes the most sense. Or if you're so damn busy that 3 mightn't even be a reasonable target at the minute, but 2 will absolutely get results. There's no question about that. What would be the optimal amount? I would say 3 is probably a number that very few would argue with. I would never argue with 4 either, but again, 4 isn't necessarily realistic or necessary to be looking at from there. So 2 to 3 times a week at that point, and picking a split that not just makes sense but is also fun, that actually you can really enjoy. So if upper body one day and lower body the next, or upper body and then lower body isn't making as much sense to you as a front and back workout, where you might tackle, chest, shoulders and quads one day, and you might be back, glutes, hamstrings on the other day, that sounds more appealing, go for that. I mean, there's nothing hard and fast about it. It just needs to make sense on the basic levels. That you're not taxing one area a lot and then giving less emphasis to another. The one thing I would say is for sure that in the early stages, that generally the posterior chain needs a hell of a lot more work than the anterior chain. So a lot more work towards, as I said, the upper, the lower back, the glutes, the hamstrings, anything along that particular line. And I'm not saying you'll have to press, but definitely I would put a lot more emphasis on that. And then once you go beyond there, then the training world is your oyster. As they call it now, there's the bro splits if you're 4 or 5 days a week, where you take one body part and you train the hell out of that and only hit it once every 7 days. Personally, I couldn't disagree with that system more. I used it for so long, and while you can hammer the hell out of a body part with it, you don't get the frequency at all. Some will say that if you train it hard enough, you won't be able to touch it for 7 days. I'd also completely disagree with that. I think it'll limit your overall ability to grow, because you can absolutely hit it every 3-4 days, particularly a weaker area, getting away from the matter at hand there. But the push-pull legs, extremely popular and also extremely effective, and that would be absolutely a go-to. Again, you could get that done over 3 days a week, but what I like, particularly if you're focusing on weaker body parts, is that you pick one or two and you can train them multiple times a week, or you're hitting them once every every 3 to 4 days. Every 3 days can be structured in, but again, it really is dependent, you know what I mean? And look, if you want to just do train it once every 7 days, you're going to get a result. If you can train it really hard, of course you're going to get results. But I suppose what I'm getting at here is I'm just putting across my personal preferences and my beliefs. That doesn't mean that they're absolutely right or wrong. It's just my opinion, and hopefully it's a fairly well respected one at this stage. But you know, not everyone's going to agree with, and that's cool. But at that point, just go with, don't be afraid to not experiment a bit, but you know, go with something that makes sense. And after that, you can mix and match, or you can really get specific towards your actual needs and goals. But ultimately, from programming, it becomes very, very individual. As time goes on. At the start, it's basic, it's straightforward, and after that, it becomes very much your own game. We'll leave it there. Lock Gannon, NXT.